Welcome everybody to DC Domingo. I know it's no longer Sunday, but I gave myself an extra day to heal. I had a cold. My throat wasn't quite up to challenge for speaking, so that took a while. We've had some wonderful news in the past week, some even great television, but this is not going to be about those things. You've seen some YouTube analysis of the Justice League trailer. That's cool. I kind of teased on it last week with the last breath that I had because I started coughing after I finished that last podcast. Now, what I'm going to do in this very, very special podcast is I am going to analyze the DC movie universe or film universe, if you want to call it movie or film or flick, whatever. Or a Spike Lee joint, as he calls it. Just because we're getting a lot of excitement. And I want to keep people in mind, to kind of analyze and keep things in perspective. Whenever a brand new cool movie comes out, people are like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. It's like, well, let's keep in mind how well this will hold up with time, right? So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into comparing. I don't usually like to talk about Marvel. I don't really care for it, but I think it's necessary. The cinematic universe concept was very old. It used to be called movie serials. Back in 1943, I believe there was a Batman movie serial, 15 movies. Superman had also 15 movies. Blackhawks, the DC comics about World War II pilots, had one of those. So yeah, it's something that is very old timey. Now, one of the most recent and profitable one was Star Trek. They had a TV show, then they had movies, then they had another TV show, they had comics, novels, video games. They tried really, really hard to intertwine the shared universe of movies and film and comics, and they were pretty damn cool. And also Star Wars, prior to the jettison of the expanded universe by Disney, when Disney bought Star Wars, it was similar to Star Trek, and in some ways more accurate, keeping with continuity and things like that. But it wasn't until the mouse did it with the superheroes by Marvel that people were like, oh, this is so original. But it is not original. It has been done before. Certainly popularized. We now have the Fast and the Furious universe. We have the Conjuring universe. King Kong versus Godzilla universe. So we're in for this trend. Over here, we're comparing, 6 films. 5 prior to the Avengers, to the ones on top, which are DC. Now, Man of Steel, Iron Man, Batman vs. Superman, The Incredible Hulk, although that poster's German, says Der Unglaubliche Hulk. Then we have Suicide Squad, Iron Man 2, Wonder Woman, Thor, Justice League Part 1, Captain America, First Avenger, and Justice League Part 2. And then we have the Avengers below. So the whole notion that DC was rushing this doesn't really make sense. And if one studio seemed to be rushing it, it's actually the one below. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but before Disney purchased the Marvel Studios, there was another plan. Well, you can see over here, this was the plan. Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Ant-Man, Thor, Captain America, and then in the Avengers, Ant-Man and the Wasp, clearly replacing, Purple Arrow, or, Hawkeye, and Scarlett Johansson. That's not Black Widow. Sorry, she had a dismal weekend with Ghost in the Shell. I should be nicer to her. So yeah, that was the original plan, before Disney bought out the Marvel Studios. And a lot of people don't seem to recall this, especially Ant-Man used to be, played by Scotty from the Star Trek, Simon Pegg. That was the plan. And when Disney saw that, okay, well, these movies cost us like $4 billion to purchase. Come on, let's crank him up. And Edgar Wright, who was working on Ant-Man at the time, he really loved the character. And from what we hear from all over the community, he was taking his sweet time to develop something extraordinary. And people are like, what is that? Well, if you've seen Scott Pilgrim, that's a cult following movie. V for Vendetta, it's extraordinary. We're still talking about it. I mean, it's not like Citizen Kane, but it's something particular and peculiar that stands out and is not bland. I mean, are we still talking about the Incredible Hulk? Hell no. So they wanted something really good, something long-lasting and enduring. So when that didn't happen, they're like, okay, so let's just make a sequel to Iron Man, replace Ant-Man with Hawkeye, and let's replace Wasp with Black Widow. And you can pretty much tell that Iron Man 2 was rushed. They try to cram, Agent Coulson, who is doing stuff. Yeah, that's an actual quote from the movie. Courtesy of Confused Matthew on YouTube. He's a Marvel fan, and even he had problems with the cinematic universe. So yeah, Iron Man 2 was rushed, and then you got The Avengers by Joss Whedon, which was sold to us as that you need to see these 5 movies prior to The Avengers. But Joss Whedon did such a great job, you kind of just needed to see Thor. All you needed to understand the Avengers was Thor, because Loki was in there. One of the best villains of the Marvel Universe that is not currently leased to Fox Studios. So yeah, that was their little original plan. Now plans changed, and people are always kind of criticizing one studio, not the other. I think that Justice League knew they were going to have a giant movie on their hands. The producers and the directors, they're like, well, let's call it a bluff. Originally, Justice League was just going to be one movie, and maybe they saw that their slate of pictures was going to be looking thin, and they're like, well, let's split it into 2 movies, because that has worked for Twilight and Harry Potter and Mockingbird, the Hunger Games saga. So what that happened is that even Marvel itself split the Infinity Stones movie, the Infinity War, into 2. Don't believe me? Google it. It was pretty damn hysterical, Batman vs. Superman's announced. All of a sudden, Captain America is angry at Iron Man. Justice League gets split into 2 parts. All of a sudden, Infinity is a giant movie. Needs to be 2. And then when Justice League became 1 movie, oh yeah, Infinity's also 1 movie. Yet the media doesn't talk about it. They kind of played a blind eye to it. So, that's how we get there. And, originally, if you didn't pay attention to the very, very last scene of Iron Man, you could have just waited to meet Nick Fury. You had other movies. One of the reasons why the extra scene was filmed to begin with in Iron Man was because the audience reacted really well when they saw the Joker card at the end of Batman Begins. That's right. Google it. Don't believe me. So yeah, even like the whole after credit sequence was inspired by DC. Brilliant, right? So yeah, what did you get in Avengers? Well, we have Iron Man in the front, but I think Captain America should be in front. That's because when Downey Jr. saw that there was a lot of lucrative stuff in these movies, he kind of, signed a giant contract, which Joss Whedon called Downey Money. And, he kind of made sure that the other actors got a nice hookup, which is why Thor's not wearing a helmet and neither Hawkeye is wearing a mask, because they want their pretty faces to be in the cover. More cover money, of course. Anyways, so yeah, you have those 5 movies, right? And if we go back to what the original plan for Marvel was, we might have had a different Avengers movie. You could, maybe instead of Loki, you could have had Ultron, because, the connection of Ant-Man and Ultron in the comics. You could have had, just space shapeshifters. It didn't need to be Loki at all. But because Loki turned out to be such a brilliant villain, I think it made sense to use him in the Marvel movies. So, how well are these films connected? Well, Tony Stark is at the end credit scene of The Incredible Hulk, but you don't see many of the people from The Incredible Hulk. The General Ross, he doesn't show up until Civil War. So that's a big never mind. Do you get to see other people from Thor? Yeah, you do get to see Loki in Avengers, but you don't get to hear any, or you do get to hear what Jane Foster's doing, but you don't see her because you can't afford that contract, You get to see what Captain America did. You know that he's a capsicle, big deal. And do we see any Hydra agents in Avengers? No. So, as far as continuity, it's kind of okay. But, you could tell that Disney buying them kind of caught them, unannounced. And they were like, well, let's make a sequel to Iron Man. Thor's already going to be in space, so we don't need to address any kind of things going on Earth. It's like, oh crap, that's going to cost us a lot of money. Let's set up a fight in the desert, kind of like in Superman 2 when General Zod comes in. Yay, that should be cost effective. Captain America, it's in World War II. Take your sweet time building him up. You could have just done that in a flashback. 10 minutes, boom, we know who he is. But yeah, nobody said that these things were just kind of milking it for what they were. And, the only movies that I own are Iron Man and Avengers from this Phase 1. My brother gave me Iron Man, and I actually bought Avengers because, I was like, yeah, that's all the movie you need. Anyways, so that's the assessment that you get. Now, if you don't believe me about Ant-Man, here's a picture of Simon Pegg pointing at Ant-Man. Don't believe me? Here's a picture of Twitter capture of Simon Pegg talking about I am Ant-Man. Oh shit, did I say that? Yes, he did. And, when Edgar Wright got fed up with their bullshit, he left, and Simon Pegg was pretty sad because he wasn't going to be a superhero. It would have been a great movie. But again, people don't seem to recall, Marvel rushing these films. They only seem to bring it up when DC. But that's because they don't compare DC to these films. The original, 6. They don't want to compare it to what Marvel's doing right now to what DC's doing right now. It's like, hey, not so fast, partner. So, let us just compare the DC movies, shall we? So we have them up here. Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, and the Justice League. Now, I have not seen Wonder Woman or the Justice League, but from the trailers and inference from what happens in the comics, I can give you a good review. I have some very, very interesting points about Man of Steel. And I'm going to run down basically all these movies. Now, a lot of people ask, what is Man of Steel? They think it's going to be another superhero movie, just like Marvel, with jokes, punching, good-looking guy, good-looking gal, haha, but it's not that. You see, prior to the creation of Superman, there was no superheroes. So to make a movie, generic superhero movie starring Superman and kind of be like, yeah, well, superheroes existed, it's pretty damn dumb. So what they did on this particular movie, which pissed a lot of people off because they were like, well, we know Superman's a superhero. They were like, hey, calm the F down, okay? This is a sci-fi action movie. And they're like, what? It's not a superhero movie? No, it's a sci-fi action movie. But why? Because that's what inspired Superman. One of the creators of Superman, his father was gunned down in real life. So, this poor creator was like, I want someone who's bulletproof, That was the inspiration of Superman, real life violence and something really depressing. So, when an alien comes to Earth, people expect them to be like, yay, USA, they're treating me really horrible, but I'm going to keep on smiling, yay. No, that's not what Superman is. This movie, it's about an alien named Kal-El, all right? There is no other superheroes, which is why other heroes in this film are the military, okay? There's no Justice League, there is no Batman. Well, Batman operated in, underground, but he's kind of like a myth, This giant alien invasion happens, and Superman doesn't really has other superheroes. So the military, kind of is like a stand-in for the heroes, which is, I salute them, you got to support our troops. In fact, this film was marketed along with the U.S. Army. There was a great, commercials and, supporting the military at a time of peace makes sense, because often the wars that we've had of lately have been kind of like, come on, so it's nice that they supported their troops with Superman. I mean, it's a giant icon. Now, the film is about two fathers raising a child. One father is an alien scientist. The Earth father is a farmer. It kind of shows you the duality of Superman for who he is, The super stuff is science, Ooh, you want to be faster than a speeding bullet? Invent a plane. Super, right? You want to be bulletproof? Kevlar. Super. But then, the other part of him is very humble and kind, which is what farmers are. They sacrifice their back to grow food and feed everybody. That's very kind. So it makes sense that the antagonist is basically alien Hitler. A lot of controversy has been made about the fact that, Superman took a harsh decision against this guy, but hey, the way I see it, if alien Hitler happens and you don't want to kill him, hey, something's wrong with you, buddy. Now this General Zod, he opposed science in genetic lineage, which is kind of fascism, he wanted to just make Krypton again, make it Krypton great again, with a lineage of families that he deemed worthy, which is pretty messed up. Now, the natural sciences prefer variety and splicing to produce a better specimen through evolution. If you take in horticulture, you would know this happens in plants. It's the same thing for people. We need diversity. Again, this General Zod didn't share that, And because war is the opposite of farming, you kind of have a good duality and opposition even with his Earth father, So yeah, and that is what Man of Steel is. And again, a lot of people seem to forget that the original Iron Man was a military action movie. It wasn't so much as a superhero movie, it was a military action. Because, this billionaire playboy gets kidnapped by a bunch of Arabs, and he builds an Iron Man suit to just show them and kill them. That's basically it. Now, moving on to Batman vs. Superman. A lot of people are still divided because they think it's like, oh my god, there's so many subplots and I can't follow. It's 3 hours. I'm gonna simplify it for you guys. It's once you hear this sentence, you're gonna be like, wow, this is pretty fucking stupid. This argument that it's like, oh, it's so long and blah 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 blah, and I can't follow it. All right, you ready, guys? Ready for some magic? All right, Batman vs. Superman. It's a film about everyone's view of Superman. Did I blow your mind yet? Okay, let me go into something else before I explain to you why this is accurate. Now, the main characters represent something about society. For instance, society is represented in Superman. Doing something and nowadays is good, but it's also bad. You can go to YouTube, parents who punish their kids. Some people go yay, some people go nay. It's like that nowadays. Any action gets you two reactions. In this film, Batman represents the law. In this case, he wants to be the law. He's a vigilante. He breaks the law because he can. Lex represents capitalism. And yes, I did say that, capitalism. It represents modern capitalism because the original form of capitalism didn't go beyond giant corporations that replaced, the castles. It was supposed to be for peasants, for short term, and it was supposed to be not getting out of hand. Lex got out of hand. Lois Lane represents journalism, which, if you've seen what happened very recently, you know that you need good journalism. Who reports the news, what kind of news, whether or not you care. It takes a giant tragedy for the U.S. to report about it outside of the U.S. That's living in a giant prison. A prison of lack of information. Keeps your mind tied down to the floor. Wonder Woman represents feminism, obviously. Alright, so you have the major players here. Wonder Woman, Lois Lane, Lex Luthor, Batman, and Superman. Each of them represent like a spectrum of our everyday life, And this film is just basically everyone's view of Superman. To Batman, Superman is an alien menace. To Lex, Superman is a god, needed to be destroyed to benefit his ego. To Lois Lane, Superman is our better nature as humans. To Wonder Woman, Superman is a hero humanity takes for granted. To Clark himself, Superman is his father's dream, often questioning whether or not it's a good idea to begin with. To the world, Superman is basically like Obama in USA, evil to some and good to some. That's it. That is all this movie is, and it's beautiful. It's wonderful. The R-rated 3-hour long version, it's one of my favorites of all time. I mean, it's a wonderful piece. And this is the second movie in the DC Comics universe. Now, The Incredible Hulk, on the Marvel side, it was, how should I say, it's a military versus lone wolf scientist science fiction movie. And it's great. Yeah, you heard it. It's a great thing to have some kind of realism attached to sci-fi. Is the movie itself, The Incredible Hulk, great? Nah. It's okay, but there's a reason why they didn't make a sequel. Now, moving on to Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad is about Black Ops with magic elements. That's it. Well, it's kind of espionage, but the way they're used here is more for saving somebody. Now, a lot of people might be like, what? What are you talking about? Well, in our real world, we have some examples of that. For instance, we used bad guys like the Taliban to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan back in the day. I know, pretty messed up. We were funding the Contras in South America with weapons that we sold to Iran to liberate some hostages during the Reagan administration. Wow. That sounds really messed up. Sounds like a movie that, some idiot made up. No, that actually happened. For instance, when we took over Iraq and we first funded the Ba'ath Party, and, Saddam Hussein's old military wasn't neglected, and we got ISIS. So there you go. That's real world examples of us using bad guys for greater good. Sometimes it backfires, as you can see. Now, this is what Suicide Squad is. Now, one of the main appeal is that this film used the bad apple images of, of bad guys. For instance, in our society, bad apple imagery has been used to damage Latinos, blacks, and women, which is what this movie appealed to. A very large percentage of the attendance for this film was, Latino, African American, and women, which is great because you can see that the three protagonists are that. You have Deadshot. He is an African American gentleman who shoots people for money. And a lot of people might want to use the very derogatory word, like, oh, he's just this and that. But, in this film, he is redeemed by his daughter's love. Quite often you see images on television, on movie, of African Americans, and because, they live a hard life, you don't seem to think that they have children or loved ones. Same thing can be said for Harley Quinn. People have used the word crazy women to belittle intelligent women. There's even a scene where Harley Quinn is fed through a tube, which is what the suffragettes did in the 20s. She is her own kind of hero, of feminist empowerment. Say what you will, but, Harley Quinn is an icon, and in the very recent comics, she's become her own person, no longer so devoted or attached to the Joker. And it might seem kind of weird to bring it to attention, but remember Princess Diana from London? Now, I know that Prince Charles is not as hideous as the Joker. He's not a criminal. But there comes a lot of baggage when you marry it into royalty. And she was able to escape that. For that she paid a very, very high price by the tabloids, Harley Quinn, she is redeemed by the love that she has for friends, which is, if you live in an abusive relationship, that's how you get out, man. Your significant other who abuses you, it's not the key, it's friends. And then we have El Diablo, who is kind of a LA gangbanger. As a Latino, I am tired of seeing, images of thugs or vatos, just being derogatory to our people. I'm sick of it, and I thought this character was just going to be kind of like a throwaway character, and he's the heart of the film. He's redeemed by the love of his new family, which is the Suicide Squad, and made a lot of people cry in this movie, man. It's he really shines in this, you know. Now this film is after Superman is no longer around, and it kind of shows you how superpowered beings are used as weapons, which is what military mercenaries are being used in our world today. Again, you know, because we no longer have a moral compass with the image of Superman, you know, this happened. Somebody thought it was a good idea to use a bunch of killers with superpowers to do some good. Case in point, Blackwater. Go ahead and Google that. Now, when Zod and Lex manipulated heroes to do bad things, we know they're bad guys. But in Suicide Squad, the government, which most of us, we see as good, are the ones controlling the bad guys. So again, it kind of gives you a dichotomy of like, well, the government's sending bad guys to do a mission. I hate the government. But wait a minute, the government's also sending military. But we like the military. Fuck. So yeah, it creates a nice dichotomy for people to appreciate and understand. Now, Wonder Woman hasn't come out yet. But, if you don't label it a superhero film, it's a fantasy action movie in a time period setting. From the awesome previews, the awesome feedback that we've gotten from people who have seen the movie, it's getting really good buzz. Positive buzz is always great. Now, one of the things that I like about what I'm seeing is that in this film, Wonder Woman joining man's world is symbolic of heroes joining the real world. Quite often, these heroes, they're battling with their bad guys that they forget we exist. I wouldn't mind seeing Tony Stark nab a person at her every once in a while. Please, will you exist? Pay my rent every once in a while, Tony. Thank you. Now, Wonder Woman also, the movie, hero acting against humanity in a military opposition scenario without a government approval. I don't think, Wonder Woman's going to go to the UN and be like, oh, yay, we exist, Amazonians, ladies, who do I fight for? She's just going to defend whenever the hell she wants, which is exactly how Superman, talked to General Swanwick. It's got to be in my terms. Pretty awesome, right? Now, the setting is World War I, which is the first of many worldwide conflicts. It's common now because, of ISIS, we have several countries involved. Because of NATO, after World War II, we have many coalitions. So this is not new, but it is new. It was new in World War I, and it's very symbolic. The first thing that Wonder Woman sees as male humans do is come together to fight. So I hope she sees the better of us as well. Now, what does Wonder Woman joining man's world also means? It's growing up. Whether you're male or female or non-gender specific, leaving Paradise Island is like leaving your childhood. It's bittersweet. So again, it's a very, very mythic appeal. The Trinity of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are three characters that are born between the two world wars. They're completely different than, the modern Marvel characters that came out in the 60s when baby boomers had everything in abundance given to them. So these Trinity are very appealing. They're mythic. They have multi-layer appeal. They're timeless. They also transcend generations. I showed you guys a tweet by Patty Jenkins of all the African American ladies who went to see Fences and they couldn't wait to see Wonder Woman. I mean, this is great. Mythic superheroes cross beyond gender, race, religion, nation, language, and culture. which is why they endure. Now, I will get into the recent statement by Marvel that diversity was hurting their sales. But again, in the 60s, Marvel targeted white dudes. Okay? If they were a little bit goofy, like DC, you would have targeted everybody. You have an alien, an Amazon, and Batman, who's basically a little boy. He stopped, if you've known the Joker's told him a long time ago that, yeah, you're just basically a kid. So those are myths, they're very wide-ranging. The Trinity, 60% is not a white male. Now, some people might say, well, what about Superman? Well, Superman's an alien. Well, yeah, but he's still white. Yeah, but he was created by sons of Jewish immigrants. And they knew that in order to fit in, you kind of had to look the part. So it's subversive. The fact that, Superman is not African American, it's not the creator's fault. It's USA's fault. Moving on, we have, let's move on. Because, to compare Wonder Woman to a Marvel movie, we also forgot to compare Suicide Squad to Iron Man 2, but I think that benefits Marvel. So let's move on. Wonder Woman kind of serves the Thor and Captain America movie with two roles. Basically, it makes sense. Now moving on to, Justice League. Oh man. All right, this is going to be awesome. Basically, it's a sci-fi action movie. However, because we've already established superheroes in the DC universe with the existence of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, we now have the ability to label this a superhero action movie with sci-fi. Cool, right? All right, so based on the trailer, this is what we're getting. We're going to have an epic battle at the beginning of people from Atlantis, people from Themyscira, the Amazonians of Wonder Woman, and mankind. Now, if you know anything about this, or if you don't, Darkseid and New Genesis are two worlds, and it will be shown in the introduction. This is a creation of Jack Kirby, who many of us believe is the true creator of Marvel Comics. Now, I say we believe because this was settled out of court, and we fans don't want to get sued. But yes, Darkseid and New Genesis was a creation of Jack Kirby in the comics of the New Gods. It's really awesome, epic. That's why people are like, oh my god, it looks like Lord of the Rings. I'm like, you have no idea. It's really epic. Now, what does that has to do with modern heroes? Well, the Atlanteans and men founded a bond, which is, the King Arthur myth in the DC comics, which is why Arthur Curry, Aquaman, his name Arthur. More on that later. And also the Amazons are entrusted with protection of the earth. Again, it brings the whole saga full circle. Now, what is the Justice League about? Well, people think it's united. Like, oh, the heroes are going to unite. Yay. Well, it's actually about multiple races and species of people. We actually are going to unite with our sisters, the Amazonians, and our brothers, the Atlanteans, who live underwater. How epic is that? That is really, really epic. It's going to be like, well, the earth is under attack. We had to come together. It's beyond that. which is brilliant. Now, as far as we can tell from the trailer, we're also going to see what the world sees our heroes can do. They're going to see multiple heroes saving the world. It's going to be very interesting to see what the militaries of the world, how they respond to this attack on Earth, how the villains responds to this, because I believe Lex is in this movie, and if you've seen the picture of Zack Snyder drawing on the iPad, Deathstroke is in there talking to Lex Luthor. Will he be sprung out of prison? Who knows? How is the Joker going to react about this world being invaded? Or better yet, Black Adam, who's going to be played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Maybe there's a cameo. Who knows? Now, we know that Batman and Wonder Woman are recruiting, And since we already have people established, great. At first, Aquaman says no. Flash immediately says, yes, I need friends, Cyborg might join the group if his dad is killed or if his dad is kidnapped. We saw Aquaman dodging some kind of axe. Maybe Atlantis is attacked. Maybe that's why he joins after all. Now, the wild card is Superman in this movie was not in the trailer. I believe it's just a rumor. I believe the reason why they wanted to make 2 movies was because at some point, Superman coming back from whatever he was, he might be like a little bit of a bad guy. Now, since we already exhausted that concept in Batman versus Superman, it makes sense that he might just be evil for like 2 seconds, and then Lois shows up and be like, oh, hey, I'm snapping out of it. That's my theory. Maybe that's why the second movie was, turned into one, And that's always a good thing. I remember Christopher Nolan did the same thing with The Dark Knight. Originally, there was going to be 2 movies. One was going to be basically the Joker, and then another movie was going to be Harvey Two-Face, and that was going to be his trilogy. And then he was like, I might not come back to this, so let's just combine the 2 scripts. And it'll be good. It's also good to have more content to pull stuff from and choose your best scenes, make them work, make them longer, and make your crappy scenes shorter. That's how you make a good script. Also, the Green Lanterns might join, because if Earth's being under attack by an alien force, the Green Lanterns might be like, hey, maybe we should protect, planet Earth. So that's what we have so far. And, does it seem like DC is rushing it? No. It seems like DC knows what they're doing. I will do another review of this towards the year's end. And now it's time for speculation, because they haven't announced anything from WonderCon or CinemaCon about the new slate of movies. Now, I've been trying to find a really, really good source for speculation on this. It didn't happen. So I came up with my own. Boom. All right. I'm not going to take too long with this, but just hear me out. Now, we know Aquaman is filming already. We saw the presentation at CinemaCon. We also know that Sirens is being worked on by David Ayer, who directed the first Suicide Squad movie. He tweeted out an image of Black Mask. Margaret Robbie is a producer. She's already been reading, she has been photographed reading comics for months now. It is of no surprise for me that I think that's going to be the next film to be greenlit. Why? Because usually people are like, well, they work on these movies hella quick and they write the script pretty quickly. I'm like, dude, the script has already been written. It's called the freaking comics. When you have the comics already written, your best shot would just to be like, okay, I'm going to take this. You send your scout, to, shop for locations. Your prop department works in costumes, and you write the script. It's not like when you're a child and, Mommy, look at what I made. And your mommy goes, oh, that's good. You should put it up in the fridge. No, these productions start way ahead. When Sirens was announced, I'm pretty damn sure they already knew which characters they were going to use. They knew which books they were going to be used. And all you have to do is assemble the scenes, and the plot is already there in the books. Easy peasy. Suicide Squad 2 might also happen. Why? Because the actors had such a great time with it. They already have the costumes. Easy, right? What you can do is pit 2 Suicide Squad teams against each other. Awesome. And I believe that's what they're going to do. 2 Suicide Squads against each other. Let's see who comes out on top. I think that'd be an awesome concept. And I also believe that's going to be another fun one to greenlight, because unless you're doing King Shark, there is not going to be a lot of CGI involved. I mean, if the TV Flash can do King Shark, I'm pretty sure Suicide Squad 2 can do it. Now, it's really interesting to have Sirens and Suicide Squad next to each other, and then a Batman movie. Why? Because there might be some cross-pollination between them. What people have to understand is the Bat family, the Batman books, are kind of like the X-Men books. People are like, oh yeah, they're overexposed. There's too many of them. Oh, but they sell pretty damn well, and as long as they're written wonderful, hey, more power to them. So I believe the Suicide Squad is going to be the next one after Sirens. Now, I believe that the Batman is going to follow that. Why? Because if let's say that either Sirens or Suicide Squad might underperform, you're going to be able to pick up the slack with Batman. Simple. And again, everybody loved the script, and they can take their sweet time with it. Because if you have Aquaman already filming, Sirens and Suicide Squad, pre-production, casting, shooting, cross-pollination is going to happen. If we have Deathstroke in Justice League, maybe he can make a cameo in Suicide Squad 2 or in Sirens. Awesome. The other cool thing is that having the Batman being your centerpiece allows you to introduce Nightwing. I know that the director Adam McRae showed interest in doing a Nightwing movie. What better way to introduce Nightwing than in the Batman? We might see Nightwing in the Justice League. Who knows? It would be interesting. Now, a lot of people are going to be confused with this one. Wait, I thought Cyborg was going to have his own movie. Yes, but if Cyborg's origin is already taken care of in the Justice League, we could follow him elsewhere. You might not need to make a Shazam movie, a Nightwing movie, and a Cyborg movie if you execute the Teen Titans movie correctly. This will not only satisfy everybody, but it will continue the characters that were already established. And also, it gives us kind of a nice, fun time to introduce Raven, a teenage witch. Is awesome, because that can lead into Constantine in the Justice League Dark Universe. How cool is that, right? I mean, I believe that Guillermo del Toro already wrote a screenplay for it because it was attached to direct. So yeah, it could be that the script that everybody liked it was shelved because Del Toro stepped away. Now, if Del Toro is not directing, he can produce it and hire somebody to do it, kind of like with Pacific Rim 2. I doubt it, but this could be his comeback movie. And one of the reasons why I think that's going to happen is because it has the word Justice League in it. That way you keep the brand interesting. You can tie up any loose Easter eggs and plot threads that you haven't taken care of. And one of the reasons why it's great to have this kind of level of involvement with all the directors, all the writers, is that you can address issues. You know, Sirens can make a nice joke out of Aquaman, you know, and stuff like that. Batman can reference Harley Quinn, you know. Cyborg can reference the Justice League. And Shazam can just reference something in magic, you know. I think it's going to work. Now, the coolest thing would be if they reference some dark entity, and then, you know, that dark entity doesn't turn out to be Black Adam, but Black Adam is in the Justice League Dark as a cameo. Now, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson met with Superman himself, Henry Cavill, for a nice little chat. I believe that Black Adam wants his own movie, and I believe that he wants to fight Superman. What wonderful sequel for the Man of Steel would be to meet the God of Lightning himself, Black Adam. You know, The Rock versus Superman. It's everybody's dream come true. Because, as you know, Superman is vulnerable to magic. Again, you don't have to deal with kryptonite again. And you could do it very, very well. The Black Adam storyline from New 52, not New 52, prior to that, just simply 52, had him being the ruler of what I think DC Comics calls Egypt, you know, Kandak. So if you have like a bad guy like Black Adam take over a country, you can have Clark Kent, probably as a reporter again, just kind of go in and ask him questions, or Lois Lane is going to go in there and ask him questions. It would be like a nice political drama. It would, you know, and Lex Luthor could run for office, like in the comics. It gives Superman room to breathe, to be happy, and then to also confront this bad guy. And it will be very, very powerful, you know. While we wait for the sequel to the Batman, we can get Joss Whedon's Batgirl. Why I think this is going to happen really quickly? The megaton buzz of online articles just talking about this. It will happen, and I think this would be a really great sequence, because you would have not only Superman but Batman, you know, featured back to back. You know, because I'm sure Batman will be in Batgirl in a scene or two. The following movie, which I think is going to happen, is the Deadshot solo movie. I pondered long and hard about this because, you know, people are like, well, what's Deadshot going to bring to the table, blah, blah, blah. If you pit him against someone like Deathstroke, oh my god. It's everybody's dream come true. And you can have, like, the redemption story of Deadshot. If Will Smith wants to come back, you can feature Deadshot in another Suicide Squad movie. Suicide Squad 3, perhaps. But if he wants his solo movie, this would be it. Because both of these characters are mercenaries. Both of these characters have daughters. And if you make it so that this is Will Smith's last run as Deadshot, my goodness, you're going to have a very tearful movie. It's going to be great. And what better way to go down fighting than fighting Deathstroke? The other two movies are no-brainers. The Flash, I'm pushing it all the way towards the end because we're looking for some really, really good director and creative team. Same thing with the Green Lantern Corps. The fact that you're going to have a lot of risks with, you know, Sirens, Teen Titans, and Deathstroke, you can make up your money with an awesome epic trilogy of The Flash, Green Lantern Corps, and ending it with Justice League 2. Green Lantern Corps is going to be in space. It's going to be kind of lighthearted, you know, kind of like a cop movie in space. It's going to be wonderful, because then if Justice League 2 happens and all hell breaks loose, you're going to need the Green Lantern Corps. And yeah, and I think Justice League 2 is just going to be an all-out war between Superman and Darkseid. And it might not happen on Earth most of the time. It's just going to have to be over there. Anyways, this is my speculation. As you see, this universe of DC Comics is very interwoven. All right. Sometimes you get really wonderful, opportunities. For instance, the fact that Justice League borrows from the Justice League War cartoon, which borrows from the Justice League New 52 written by Jeff Johns. It's kind of a coincidence, kind of amazing. It's also a nice coincidence that the second saga of Jeff Johns' Justice League run was the Throne of Atlantis plotline, which was also animated, and it also makes sense that Aquaman would follow Justice League. Again, you have these great dynamics between these comics. Anyways, I hope you liked my hour-long podcast, and I will see you next weekend. Say yes to DC, do let's see at DC.